Thank you very much. I can't see anything for the lights up here, but I've got to be quick. Thank you very much for being here tonight. That's what this country's all about, is a night like tonight. I am the interim sheriff. I took that role March 2nd. I have been in law enforcement for over 46 years, serving with Oklahoma City Police Department and Oklahoma County Sheriff's Office. Been married over 40 years, have 3 beautiful daughters, 7 grandbabies, and they're a big part of my life. And I'm very proud to be in law enforcement. It's been an excellent career for me, and I've met a lot of wonderful people along the way. I feel like I am the most qualified, most experienced person to be your next Oklahoma County Sheriff. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Mr. Hanson.
Thanks everyone for coming out tonight. I'm honored to be here. My name is Mike Hanson. I'm 54 years old. I have 2 sons, Michael and Nathan Hanson, both work for the Sheriff's Office. I have 3 grandchildren and 2 daughter-in-laws, Chrissy and Macy. My grandchildren mean a lot to me. My children also mean a lot to me. And having them work with me at the Sheriff's Office has meant a lot. It's also been an enjoyable thing to watch them grow and become good men in law enforcement. I grew up in Choctaw, graduated from Choctaw High School. Some of you may think that's quite hilarious, being out far east. We were always made fun of. But worked in construction, started my reserve portion in 1986. In 1998, I came on as a full-time deputy at Oklahoma County. Went to Patrol Division and spent 15 years in Patrol Division, 14 years on what they call the tactical team. It's a SWAT team, and enjoyed every minute of it.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
Appreciate it. And Mr. Grimes.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for letting me be here. I want to start out by stating in 1997, newly elected Sheriff John Wetzel pledged that he would maintain and fix our jail. In the past 20 years, $465 million has been spent on the jail and the Sheriff's Office. It is worse today than it has ever been. Since then, the Sheriff's Office has more than 227% increase in its budget to operate and maintain the jail and the Sheriff's Office. We must make every effort to salvage and maintain our jail as we have it today. The Sheriff's Office, President County Commissioners, more than 16 pages of items that could not be located today were handed sheets for disposal. This was part of the $3.3 million lost property documented by the state auditor, which has caused the previous sheriff to resign. There's too much unaccountability, too many deaths, 25 in the last 20 months, too many broken promises, too many excuses. We, the taxpayer, pay for this with higher taxes because of this mismanagement and neglect, and it has to stop. I need your vote come September the 12th to make a positive change. Your choice determines our destiny. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Mr. Taylor, former Sheriff John Wetzel and yourself have both stated that a lack of funding has hampered the Oklahoma County Sheriff Department. How so? And what would you do with more funding?
Well, one thing I'd like to make clear, I became interim sheriff March 2nd, and I get criticized for a lot from my predecessor and actions he may not have taken, but I'm talking about March 2nd forward. Funding has been an issue, but I've taken the stand that I'm going to do the very best job with what I have. Hopefully, so there's some time and point where law enforcement in the Oklahoma County Jail does become a greater priority to the citizens of Oklahoma County. But I've been dealt the dealt that I have. There is a lot of issues. We've made numerous changes, and I'm going to do the very best that I possibly can with what I have to work with. There's a lot of things, if you had proper funding. There's so many issues in that jail. There's not an outside recreation. There's really virtually nothing to do for those inmates but just set their time out, and they spend a lot of time. They do a lot of damage and tear up a lot of the lights and the sprinkler heads and things like that. If we had proper funding, we could do all types of programs to help those inmates and help them from turning their lives around.
Mr. Hanson, 30 seconds.
With proper funding, I think we need to spend it on having more detention staff, well-trained detention staff in the jail to be on the floors to make sure that they have eyes on the inmates. Whenever there is a situation, we can overwhelm the inmates with people, staffing. I think that spending money anywhere else at first is just wrong, and I think that would be the best place to start with. Funding is always going to be a problem with Oklahoma County. We don't have a sales tax in Oklahoma County for the Sheriff's Office, and we should. Thank you.
Okay, the Oklahoma County Sheriff's Office is operating on the same amount of money that they were issued last year. So the budget this year is the same as it was last year. Mismanagement is the problem with what's going on at the Sheriff's Office. Money's being allocated to places that it should not be. There's no transparency. There's no record keeping that keeps people honest, and that's got to stop. That has got to stop today.
This question is for Mr. Hanson. In March, auditors noted more than 3,000 items on the Oklahoma County Sheriff Department inventory, quote, could not be located or reviewed in any manner. As someone who's worked for the department, how does that happen, and have you ever seen items go missing?
I've been issued guns throughout my career in patrol and on the SWAT team, many different weapons, and never had any issues with any of them coming up missing. The Sheriff's Department's always been really good about taking good record of those things. If anything comes up missing in that area, some things are destroyed, paperwork's not filled out properly, and I think that might be where some of that is. But the main issues with things not being found, I talked to a lot of the guys that were being audited, a lot of the people that were around that time. They'd be standing in what we call a command post and then say, well, all the equipment's in the command post, but we just don't know where the command post is. Well, they were standing in it. So there's some issues with the way the audit was done, but I still say there's some things that are missing probably, but for the most part, I don't know if it was that extreme.
In reference to that, as when I was an undersheriff at Canadian County, one of my responsibilities was to conduct the inventory of the sheriff property. We done a mandatory audit once a year, and we always come up with the right amount of property that we were supposed to have. And when we don't have the amount of property, then you have to take forms over to the county commissioners and show them that you can't find that property, and then they will give you additional time.
Thank you very much. Mr. Taylor?
I inherited that issue, and that issue has been corrected. I've added personnel in the property, a complete new supervisor in the property room, and we are currently getting a number of items off of our inventory. We literally went through 2 sheriffs without anything coming off of inventory, and I inherited a huge problem, but it's being corrected. A lot of those items was dated. We were looking for a meat slicer dated from 1955. They had items on the inventory since 1955 that had been simply thrown away. We had hot water tanks that had been thrown away and replaced. So that problem I inherited, that problem's been fixed, and it'll certainly be done the right way. It was a very quick audit. It was an incomplete audit, incorrect audit, but it is being fixed.
Mr. Grimes, you served as undersheriff in Canadian County. Specifically, what policies and procedures did you see in Canadian County that you would implement here in Oklahoma County if elected?
First thing I'd like to see implemented in Oklahoma County, especially in the jail, and that's to treat people like human beings. You know, they're not animals, they're people. You know, they deserve to be treated that way. I've found that if I treat people, myself personally, with respect, 99% of those people will show respect back to me, okay? I've never had to whoop somebody to get them in the back of my scout car. Fortunately, I've always been able to talk to people and explain to them, look, I didn't do this, you done this, you know what the consequences were before you started doing this, and if you got caught, you knew the possibility of you was going to jail, okay? So I always treat people the way I want to be treated, and until they give me a reason not to treat them like that, then I will continue. Thank you.
If I could just follow up, though, what specific policies would you implement?
The policy that I would implement, that we would definitely have more detention officers. We would, I would teach or train the detention officers to treat people with respect, to treat them like they're human beings. You know, we are merely there to house them. Those people have not, the majority have not been convicted of anything. They've only been arrested. It's not our job to judge them or pass judgment on them. It's our job to provide a place for them to stay until they have the chance to go before the judge and make their case. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Mr. Taylor, we'll let you have 30 seconds. Maybe you might want to phrase it in terms of policies that you're trying to implement during your time now as acting sheriff.
Since March 2nd, I've made dozens of changes. We have plenty of policies. It's a cultural change, and employees and the way we do things, we're going to be held accountable and do it right. But I don't want anyone to leave this room. We have the finest employees in the world. They do a professional job. Those people that work in the jail, that is the toughest job that you can possibly have. I've rode the streets many years. There's no comparison to working in the jail and working in those conditions. We have excellent employees. We have plenty of policies in place. We just need to have good supervision, make sure those policies are followed, and
Thank you very much. Mr. Hanson, same question to you. What policies would you like to implement if you were sheriff?
Well, as P.D. Taylor just said, I believe we've got enough policies. I would just like to see them implemented and make it stand that everyone has to adhere to all the policies, not just certain ones. Every employee needs to adhere to every policy that we have, and it stands for everyone, not just a few. Then, secondly, we need to have more employees on the floors, and they need to be trained better. Those are the things that are important. The policies, some are being followed, some aren't being followed, and we just need to make sure that the supervisors enforce that.
Is it your implication that there are some people not adhering to policies and others are? I mean, is that what you're saying?
Well, if you've got about 5 hours, I could tell you everything, but it just takes, it's just some things, some people are held to certain standards and others aren't.
Thank you very much, sir.
Mr. Hanson, the Oklahoma County Jail has been an albatross since it opened in 1991. Its design has been criticized, its capacity has been insufficient, and news stories have highlighted a string of jail deaths, particularly in the past few years. Community leaders debate whether the county needs to build a new jail. Do you believe a new jail should be built?
I do believe that in the near future, we're going to have a new jail. I think we can throw money at this one, and we can fix what's wrong, and we can make it work. But as a sheriff, you are to staff the jail and to make it function. It's the county commissioners and maintenance crews that they determine, and engineers that will determine whether or not the building will be usable for a certain period of time. But as we are right now, there's no money that we could throw down and build a jail and have it in time to walk right into it. I mean, we've got time. It's going to take a long time to build money. It's going to take time to build the building. So we've got to throw money into this building. We've got to fix what we can and make it work. And as the sheriff, you'll have to, it takes more staff when the showers on one floor aren't working, and you've got to take people up to the next floor to make it work, to get their showers in. So you're just utilizing a lot of the staff for things they normally wouldn't have to do. And that's where our problems are coming in, because we're short-staffed already. But yes, I believe a new jail is going to be needed. It can't last forever.
I do believe that eventually we will have to purchase start the program to get a new jail. I agree that we must maintain what we have until we can get in there and decide and see exactly what we got to deal with. We are not in a position today to even start a brand new jail, but you're looking at least 6 years in the making before we get to put the first inmate in there. So maintain what we have, reevaluate what we have, reduce the number of nonviolent people inside that jail, get the jail count under control where it can be managed, hire the right people, and put them in the right positions, and we can maintain what we have until a vote can be done or something can be decided on how that we're going to come up with the funds of building this new jail.
Thank you very much, sir. Mr. Taylor, same question to you, 1 minute response.
The jail opened in 1991. If you all have lived here all your life, it's been a problem since 1991. It was not designed properly nor built properly. And looking back, maybe some of the county commissioners that was a part of that maybe should have been the first people to participate in the new jail. If you remember, the first thing, within the first week, inmates was taking blocks out of the windows and coming down the side of the building trying to escape with torn up sheets. But the problem here, the jail is crumbling. Without a doubt, we need a new jail. And the fairest way to fund a new jail is sales tax. But this, in a perfect world, that would be the answer. But if we're not going to get a new jail, I have been meeting with city officials, county officials, and talking about we need some relief. And we've been discussing the possibility of using some land to the south of us that's owned by Oklahoma City. I desperately need a new receiving area, a medical clinic, a mental health area that we could properly house mental health inmates, and we need a new kitchen, and we need a new laundromat on the ground floor. It's a huge problem. We have to buy pumps, maintain pumps, to even suck the water up to ground level to get it out.
Mental health and substance abuse issues are prevalent in any jail population. What specifically can the Oklahoma County Sheriff's Department do for offenders with mental health or substance abuse issues?
Okay, during the initial booking process, they go through an evaluation, and those that are determined to be a mental patient or not, drug problems can be identified in that manner. From there, we can consult with those individuals and ask if they would like to seek some type of treatment, and if so, if they would allow us to assist them to do that, being that they don't have the means to set the schedule up, and we do. A lot of the problems it exist when they first brought into the jail during the screening process, and you know, when you screen for meds, then you lower the deaths, and you have more natural deaths in there instead of narcotics. The same with the mental issues. If you screen somebody that is known to have mental problems and you put them on watch, then you can reduce a lot of the suicides inside that jail also.
Well, I totally disagree. I don't know how you're going to recognize a person that has mental illness while you're booking them in. There's so much that can be done. I sit on a number of boards that we have put together numerous plans. We instituted a plan where we completely redesigned our processing area to speed it up, and then we send inmates to classification where they spend extra time with medical staff and employees. And during those 3 days they're there, that's when we're trying to have more conversation and more activity with those people to help identify problems they may have. A huge benefit to us, we get all kinds of agencies bring inmates to our jail. We book them in and house them. We don't have a clue what kind of medical conditions they have when they come in, if they have pre-existing conditions. We don't know if they've been involved in accidents. We don't know if they've swallowed 3 or 4 bags of meth while en route to jail. and we deal with all these people. And we're moving in a direction. That's why I mentioned a while ago, we definitely need a facility. We are the largest mental health facility in Oklahoma. Why? Because there's no other place to put them.
I believe during the assessment of the intake, you can notify or recognize some of the people with mental health issues. Can you catch them all? I don't believe so, but I think you can catch a number of them. And then you could house them in the right areas. You wouldn't house treated people that are on medication versus people who aren't on medication, and so on and so forth. There's ways of dividing it and ways of keeping them separate. You have violent, nonviolent. There's a lot of things that can be done, but most of it, again, will go back to having the employees there to deal with it and to oversee it and to make sure that it's being used properly. And they need to be trained, properly trained. Our training for our detention officers have went down over the years, and we need to strive to reach that goal to where their training is the best. And it used to be the best. It just kind of went down because of financial issues.
Mr. Teller, along the same lines that we're talking about, this year there have already been 10 deaths at the Oklahoma County Jail. In 2016, there were 15 deaths. In 2015, there were only 4 deaths. In 2014, there were 6 deaths. In the spike in jail deaths, is this just a coincidence, or is this something happening in the jail that needs to be addressed? And specifically, what are you doing to improve inmate safety and care? I know that you indicated that you don't really believe there's much you can do when somebody does have psychological issues. What specifically should you be doing to address that or to address drug issues?
In 2016, we had 15 deaths. 9 was natural problems, natural causes. 5 was suicides, and the other ones were remaining on toxology and tests from the medical examiner. There's a lot being done. There's so much issues about this. One of the first things I did was reach out to Terry White, the director of the state mental illness program. Her and her staff came down and met with me, and it was an excellent meeting. We came up with all kinds of positive things, and the most positive things, we found out there's a way that we can work with them, and they can share us information in advance when we have a person being booked in, and we can check with them, and they can help us identify those people, and if they've had mental illness and what kind of medication they're on. There's no way, when these people are booked in, there's no way to know what kind of medication they're on. A lot of times they're off their medication and they've committed a minor crime and they wind up in the county jail. But we're making so many excellent moves. You cannot fix all the major issues overnight, but we are working as fast as we can, and we're going to get there. We're getting the job done with what we have to work with.
Well, you never know exactly how many of those you could have stopped or how many you couldn't. But I think that if you look, it starts back when Wetzel was starting to have the financial difficulties, and we started losing our employees. Our levels went down, and as our levels go down on the employees, we don't have the staff that can go in there and visually see them. We can't rely on cameras. Cameras either aren't working properly at times, or they're out of the camera view, or if they're in their cell, they're not being able to be seen by the videos. Video is a great thing, but it's not a cure-all. You have to have people on the floor walking the rooms and looking in. We have a check system, but it's flawed. We need to improve it. It needs to be changed. We have to have people on the floors watching the people, looking at the people. It will minimize the deaths. It won't stop them all. We can't. You can't stop someone who's dedicated and determined to do what they want to do to themselves, but you can dang sure limit the amount that we're seeing.
Coincidence? No, I don't believe it's coincidence. I believe that if the $1.2 million that the county commissioners had approved to hire 20 additional detention officers and to give the 3% raise to the rest of the detention officers, that might have saved 1 or 2 lives in that jail. You know, whenever you're transporting or moving inmates, you don't put hazardous inmates with other hazardous inmates. They're called separatees, and they're called separatees for a reason, because they don't like one another. Gang members will beat the snot out of another gang member, and their job is totally to try to kill them. Why they get an attaboy from their gang, I don't know. But that's what their goal is. And it happens every day. It happened in Oklahoma County Jail, and if we don't get the amount of people in there to run the thing the way it needs to be run, it's going to happen again.
I mentioned that a lot of people have been asking us about jail deaths. I had, and just the situation at the jail in general, I had a chance to see you gentlemen speak Sunday at the Voices Forum, the Voice Forum, and one thing was brought up by that group that I thought was interesting and possibly very tragic. There were some concerns about a lack of feminine hygiene products available to female incarcerees. And during the course of that, Sheriff Taylor, you had the obviously very good political line to say that if that's a problem, it'll be dealt with 7:30 Monday morning. It's now 6:45 on Wednesday evening, and I was wondering if you and your fellow folks could discuss this. What did you find out Monday morning when you got into the office? What did you learn about that, and what might be done?
The lady that asked that question called me Monday morning, and I'd already taken care of that issue. I got with the jail administrator 7:30 that morning, and that is not an issue. But you all do need to know a number of the items that people need in jail. They use them for a lot of other issues other than what they were intended to be used for. But that is not an issue. That was addressed 7:30 Monday morning. And we just started a new class this past Monday of almost 40 detention officers. It's the largest class we've had in years. The pay's not very good. The benefits aren't the best when you're working a very dangerous job. But we were able to have a number of people working day and night, and we put together the largest class in probably 15 years of detention officers.
Thank you. You said it wasn't an issue, but it's been taken care of? Was it an issue, or has it been fixed?
It was not an issue. There may have been an issue under my predecessor, but it is not an issue.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you. Mr. Hanson, Mr. Grimes, want to give you equal time to talk about this. It shouldn't come to any surprise that the three candidates running for this position have not menstruated in their lives. So how can you reassure the women of this county that you are aware of the issues that they may have needs on?
I'll go first. I can just tell you that if someone needs something, it is the job of the detention officer to bring that to someone's attention, and we'll get that thing or those things or a box, a tree of it, whatever, I don't know. But you'll get it to them. You'll get them whatever they need to get, because it's feminine hygiene. I mean, you got to have it. It's not something that, as one of the remarks that was stated at the Voice was, well, just go sit on the toilet. You'll get over it. That's not acceptable. And we'd have to have some little talk with whoever may have said something like that to them. Again, it goes back to what we said earlier with Mr. Grimes, is treat them like human beings. It's somebody's relative that's in that building.
All right, I can personally comment on this. I am still active. I still transport inmates for Canadian County. I work out of the Civil Division. Occasionally, quite occasionally, we come to Oklahoma County and pick up inmates. It's not a pleasant job because when I pick them up, most of them stink to high hole heaven. They're nasty. They hadn't had a bath. I picked up a gentleman one day, and I literally had to lower the windows down in the back because I could not stand how bad he smelled. And I asked him, why have you not taken a bath or anything? How long have you been here? And he told me he'd been there for 2 weeks, and that he was wearing, when he came down to receiving before I picked him up, he was wearing the same clothes that he was issued 2 weeks earlier when he was placed in jail, along with the same underwear. He had not had a bath in 2 weeks.
Mr. Grimes, as the only candidate who is not currently working for the Oklahoma County Sheriff Department, you're somewhat of an outsider. What benefit would that lend you as sheriff? What challenges would it pose?
Okay, I worked for Oklahoma City for 25 years, so I rubbed elbows with the Oklahoma County deputies. I watched Oklahoma County come from nothing to a wonderful, wonderful sheriff's office, and then I've watched it decline over the years. I'm in the jail all the time. I associate with the guys all the time. I know what goes on in the sheriff's office. So I stay up to date with them. I just came off the U.S. Marshals Metro Fugitive Task Force. I place people in that jail almost on a daily basis up until February when I came out off the U.S. Marshal Service. Now then, I pick people up there on almost a weekly basis anyway. So again, I know a lot of the issues that plagues the Oklahoma County Sheriff's Office and the jail, and the employees that work there. Those are some of the finest law enforcement officers in this country that work for Oklahoma County Jail. They just don't get paid for anything, and anybody that would work at an agency that they qualify for food stamps for 30 years, they got to love their job.
Well, there's no one better than I that know what the problems are and what the issues are. And we've been changing that since March 2nd. It's very easy for people to stand up here that maybe never been above the first floor of that jail and throw rocks and throw at people and say I have yet to hear a plan on how they're going to do this other than they're going to do it.
You assumed duties of acting sheriff by saying you were going to make changes. What changes have you implemented? And how would you counter someone saying that you would just be a continuation of former Sheriff Wetzel's tenure as sheriff?
I've faced this issue from March 2nd forward. The difference between me and Mr. Wetzel is night and day. Mr. Wetzel didn't take criticism. He didn't listen to anyone. He didn't take any ideas. Since March 2nd, there's been so many changes. I should have brought a list of them, but they're all the way from giving some small pay raises to some of the lowest paid people in the jail, adding supervisors, holding people accountable. We're saving money every day, and those small amounts of money that we're saving is going to add up where I can put that money back to fixing the jail and giving those employees a decent salary. If you're married with children, you can't live and you can't work there very long. We've made so much numerous changes. We're changing graphics on the car. We're going to save $700 a car. I've moved the supervisors around. People are being held accountable. No more of just doing whatever they want to do. They're going to do a job. We're going to look good together or we're going to go down together. And there's a total culture mindset that's being changed, and you cannot do that overnight.
I would say there has been some changes made, and I'm happy for some of them. Some of them are not so important, but a lot of them are great changes. Moving the supervisors around was a great idea. We used to do that all the time whenever John Wetzel was the sheriff. We'd do it every so often. They'd move the captains around. But again, we're not holding everybody accountable to the same policies, and I believe we're still doing that today. It's a habit that we've got to break. We've got to set the policies down, and we've got to make sure everybody's read them, and then we've got to make sure that they adhere to them. And if they don't, then instead of going down, them going down, taking us down with them, we're not going to have that situation. We're going to remove the problem. We're going to get people in there that's going to treat people like human beings. We're going to get people who do the job that they're paid to do. It is a low-paying job. I knew that when I got into it. I knew I wasn't going to get rich. But I also knew that what I was doing was something that I loved. And I've been doing it for a long time. Yeah, we could go make money somewhere else a little bit more, but I'm telling you, these people that do the job love it.
Well, the one thing I can tell you, I can agree with Mr. Taylor, is that I have not been off the first floor in several years since I came out of investigations. But when I was in investigations, I went over and interviewed subjects on a regular basis there inside that jail. So the changes, I haven't seen really any changes occur. They still fix their food in the Sally Port. It's still un-air conditioned in there. The jail is still dirty. It's still filthy. So I have not noticed really anything on the first floor.
Mr. Hanson, you currently work for the Oklahoma County Sheriff's Office, and on social media, you've been very critical of the Sheriff's Department. Do you believe your Facebook comments criticizing jail administrators and other employees were appropriate, and did you threaten to fire some of your coworkers if elected?
What I have said on Facebook has not been near as bad as what others have said on Facebook that work at the Sheriff's Office and have a higher rank than what I do. However, that being said, working for the Sheriff's Office, I mean, probably wasn't the greatest idea I've ever had to say something that was been bad about the Sheriff's Office, but when people continue to die and no changes are made to discontinue that, to slow it down, to minimize it, nothing has been made. No changes have been made in that area. Then I really feel like if we're speaking up for the person who passed and the loved ones that they have, then you got to do what you got to do. You've got to speak out and say something. You can't just sit back just because somebody's doing something that you know, it's wrong or they're not doing anything. Somebody's got to speak for that person. We know that we have attorneys and judges and everything else, but as an individual that works here, you still have to stand up and say what you got to say and let it be known.
Go ahead, Aaron.
Just to follow up, if I may, have you threatened the jobs of your colleagues if elected? Any of your colleagues?
I've been asked many times who would be fired, and it's jokingly conversation between me and other people, just teasing, and even they asked me if I would fire my own sons, that kind of stuff. If anybody thinks that the way it's being run now and the way John Wetzel run it then, that it's okay, then why are we having all these problems? There has to be change, and some people may have to be removed. Some people may be changed in their status. That's a given. I don't see how you can continue to do the same thing and think that there's going to be a change.
One more follow-up, I apologize. Do you feel it's appropriate to joke about firing colleagues, though?
Well, I don't think it's funny, but it's been done to me many times. I've been threatened several times about my job from my supervisors that I've had. And whenever I got into this race, I knew for a fact that there's going to be people that are probably not going to be in positions they're in now. And I'll stand on that.
My answer is, I don't plan on firing anybody, you know. The last time I looked, we still live in the United States of America. We still have a right to vote who we want to vote for and say what we want to say. It's called freedom of speech, you know. People are entitled to their opinion. Not everybody likes everybody. That's okay, okay? But when the doors close and everybody goes home, we all go to bed, we get up in the morning, and we start a new day.
Thank you very much. Mr. Taylor, would you like to talk about that topic?
Well, I can assure you no one's ever threatened Mr. Hanson's job. I called him up personally, and he is clear on that. There was some statements made. He named some individuals by name that he was going to fire. There was comments made about a class of employees that needs to get up and get to work. And there were some derogatory remarks made against the employees, and that issue was addressed. There was comments made that if elected, he was going to fire everybody over there. Those are concerning remarks.
Mr. Hanson, I see you shaking your head. Would you like to say something?
I never said I was going to fire everybody anywhere. There are people that have been treating people incorrectly. And again, we go back to the policy issue of certain people have to abide by certain policies and others do not. We all know that that happens, and that has to cease. It has to stop. Everybody needs to be treated right based on their work, based on their ability, and those things are the most important. If you're going to just do it because you know him and he's a good friend, then that's wrong. The good old boy system has got to go.
The Black Lives Matter movement has drawn headlines and mixed responses over the past few years. Born out of frustration with numerous dubious police shootings of African Americans across the country, BLM is a simple acknowledgement of fact. Black lives do matter. How does each of you view that movement, And how would you help improve law enforcement relations in Oklahoma County's black communities?
First of all, meet with them, find out what their major concerns are, and work on them, and then we'll work from there. I've had the opportunity to work with several of the Black Lives Matter people whenever the Daniel Holtzclaw trial was going on in Oklahoma County. I was there when they came in, and we treated them with respect. We let them sit in the courtroom, and we talked to them, and we visited with them, and we made sure that they didn't violate any of the rules of the courtroom per the judge. And that wasn't required by the judge, but those are the rules that he implements in that courtroom. And they were fine with it. We didn't have an issue. Everything went fine. So that you have to talk with them. You have to get with them and understand them.
Well, first of all lives matter. And they matter. They matter to law enforcement as a whole. I rode the east side when I worked for Oklahoma City for over 13 years. Since I've been interim sheriff, I have met with numerous citizen groups, black ministers. I've attended functions at black churches, and it is a top priority to me. But the bottom line here is all lives matter, and I agree. Everyone should be treated equally, and we're going to make sure of that. Thank you.
I can't agree any more than that. All lives matter, and everybody deserves to be treated equally. And I treat people equally, and I expect my employees to treat people equally until they can no longer be treated equally. The choice is theirs. You know, I'm here to do a job, and that's what I plan on doing. We all should get along. There is absolutely no reason why we do not get along. In my opinion, black is a color that you find in a box of crayons. Really?
Being your Oklahoma County Sheriff is an awesome responsibility, and it would be an honor. I'm a person that is, what you see is what you get. I speak from the heart. I'm concerned about everything, every negative thing that happens in the jail. I've got a lot of jail staff members here. We're on top of it every day. We're meeting, we're addressing issues, we're solving problems, and I'm just a relentless type person. I'm never going to give up. I'm going to do the very best that I possibly can. I see something really positive happening in Oklahoma City. Clay Bennett, Oklahoma City Chamber, has gotten involved, and a lot of movers and shakers in Oklahoma County have realized that we have to do something with the jail. It's not just a county problem, it's a city-county problem. Oklahoma City Chamber brought Vera in. The whole criminal justice needs to be addressed. They brought Vera in. We're working every day. We've instituted programs. We're getting people out faster. We're ORing people out faster. We have these county programs with people operating out of our jail to get the nonviolent people out faster. Oklahoma City PD's moving in a direction you're going to see a lot more ticket and release. We have to do something. Oklahoma, you talk about deaths in the jail, it's the times we're living in. If you haven't watched the news lately, there's homicides every night. Should we blame the police for not solving those? How could they possibly let these homicides happen? There's more DUIs on the street. There's more drugs. There are more crimes. Homicides up tremendously in Oklahoma City. Suicides are up nationwide. Drug problems out of control. Is that it? Thank you. Thank you very much. I would be honored to be your sheriff of Oklahoma County.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Mr. Hanson, 2 minutes to close.
First of all, I'm honored to be here to be able to speak on behalf of the job that needs to be filled. I'm going to tell you that everything that's been done, I'll stand beside what I say or behind what I say. I assure you there was no intent of demeaning anyone that worked at Oklahoma County, because I think everybody that works at Oklahoma County, or for the most part, they're intelligent, they're hard workers, but we need to improve. We need to get them some help. Those are the ones that are doing the work. We're minimized staff. We need to improve the staffing. We need to get them more people and trained people. We need to have more training in mental health. We need to have more training in areas of combating the problems with inmates that, that it's mental health, but they want to fight. And at that point, you can't really say it's just mental health. But as sheriff, we're going to have to do more training. And we used to be that way. And we need to get back to that point again. Again, it's going to cost money. Nobody wants to hear that. I understand that. But it's going to cost lives or it's going to cost money. And we need people in the jail to work. I'd rather it cost us money than cost us lives. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hanson. And Mr. Grimes, to close us out for 2 minutes.
I want to bring back the unity, the pride, and the honor of the Oklahoma County Sheriff's Office. I'd like to address the huge number of deaths that occur in our jail, to train our staff that we are merely the housekeepers of these people, that we are not their judge and we're not their jury. To address the overpopulation by contacting the district attorney's office and the courts and try to put the failure to pay court costs and fees on some type of temporary standby until we can get the number of people under control that are inside our jail. We need to work more closely with the public defender's office and make sure that people have attorneys to represent them. The fact to quit incarcerating low-level criminals like traffic citations and public drunks, but public drunks in detox. They don't need to be in Oklahoma County Jail. And there's a lot of people that do not need to be in that jail, but they get stuck in there. And the deal with the Rule 8s is it's a continuing revolving door. They go to jail, they incur fines and court costs, and they get out, they don't have a job, they don't have a house, they've lost their car, they lost everything they own. Then they turn around, they get picked up again. Well, then they're getting picked up because they couldn't pay the daggum court costs to begin with. And now then they're incurring court costs again, and they sit in there for 2 weeks, and they accumulate more fines, and they're not going to be able to pay that. We've got to work and figure out a way to stop this. It's a revolving door that creates a huge suction, and they could never get out. At one time, the United States had what it called a creditor's debt, and then 2 centuries ago, the United States abolished that practice by putting poor people in jail because they couldn't pay their debt. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank all of these candidates for being here and answering our questions. They did not have to do that. They did not have to come up on this stage and answer tough questions from journalists. But you, in the audience, and events like this, the importance of public debates, show that the public demands that and wants that, and that anyone who's going to run for political office should be prepared to do that. So thank you, gentlemen, for being here. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. I appreciate it.